We're going to look at the four world zone theory, and we will see how the world changed forever when these three separate world zones became interconnected. Before 1450, if you lived in Europe, Africa, or Asia, that was the world. You had no idea that there were three other worlds out there. You lived in the old world, but of course it wasn't really the old world, it was the only world. At the time, if you were to suggest that there are three other worlds out there, people would probably think you were mad, perhaps comparable to thinking about aliens. Or, even worse, you were crazy enough to disagree with the church. Not a very sensible thing to do at the time if you valued keeping your head. When Columbus set sail in 1492, he predicted that he would make landfall in Asia very quickly. Legend has it that he defied the Spanish officials to do so, sailing west instead of east, because he was certain the world was round. He mistakenly believed that the earth was very small, and that by travelling west he would quickly reach China. He would open up new trade routes. The world would become even more interconnected. After years of negotiation and argument over the actual length of the proposed journey, he finally convinced Ferdinand II of Spain and his wife Isabella to finance the expedition. Though Columbus never actually proved the Earth was round, he did manage to upset the long-held idea that you could sail directly to China across the Atlantic Ocean. He, on his journey, discovered a whole new continent, a whole new world. Well, of course, that wasn't strictly true. He didn't discover it. There were indigenous Americans there already, and many historians feel the Vikings actually did discover North America way before in the 11th century. Darn it, I'm gonna have to rewrite history. The truth always gets in the way. Anyway, Columbus didn't think the Earth was flat, but he did jumpstart the age of exploration. He changed the course of human history. From then on, people would understand that there was more than one zone. There was a new world out there. Historian David Christian divides the world into four zones. The first zone, the largest, was Afro-Eurasia, the Old World. That was the largest zone. The second zone consisted of North and South and Central America, or the New World. It's the second largest zone. Then there was Australia. Australia and the island of Papua New Guinea and the nearby islands of the Pacific Ocean. These count as Australasia. The final zone was the Pacific Islands, societies such as New Zealand, Micronesia, and Hawaii. In his theory, a world zone is simply a large area where humans interact. Each zone is made up of several parts, but these are all linked together geographically. These parts are also interconnected by things like language, religion, trade, or politics. It may have hundreds of thousands of people living there in different types of communities, but they're all interconnected to each other. Each of the four world zones was a zone by itself, a bit like its own separate world. There was no regular contact between these zones. This all changed when the Europeans sailed to the Americas in 1492. Today, the four separate world zones are gone. Our world is now one zone, totally interconnected. Farming civilizations only emerged in the two largest world zones, Afro-Eurasia and the Americas. These two zones had great advantages. These advantages were fertile land and space. By far the biggest advantage was held by Afro-Eurasia. It was extremely large, had many plants for food, and better plants and animals for transportation. These advantages allowed civilization to begin there several thousand years earlier than in the Americas. This gave Afro-Eurasia a huge advantage when they arrived in the Americas. It made conquering the Americas very easily. The two small world zones had much less room to live. There were fewer resources and fewer people. There were not really enough people living close enough together to develop advanced civilizations. Agriculture did emerge in the larger islands in the Pacific, like Hawaii. Something close to countries started springing up. But these lands were quickly conquered. They didn't really have the chance to develop their own advanced civilizations. Would they have become civilizations if they had not been conquered by the people of the larger zones? Well, of course, we'll never know. It's easy to see that the people living in Afro-Eurasia had a huge head start. They were the earliest human settlers. They were helped by large areas of land. They had the most people, and they also had the most resources. And perhaps most importantly, they were around for a long time, so they were able to share their knowledge, and they were able to start global trade as we know it today. The question is, was this trade ever fair? Is it even fair today? Was it right that the Europeans used their advantage to colonise the world? If the Sustainable Development Goals were around in 1450, would the Europeans have done the things they did? So in this video today, we have looked at the four world zone theory. How the world was before the 1450s. It was really like four worlds in one. We then looked at Columbus, who changed everything when he discovered the New World. We then thought why the zones were so different, and finally we thought if it was fair and how these four world zones no longer exist. If you like my video, please click on like and consider subscribing to my channel.